A few years ago in South Boston, crime is out of control. Frank Costello, a Boston Irish mob boss, says he prefers to be the author of his own environment and that in life you have to get what you want. To do this, he goes to a cafe in the park to collect money from the owner and runs into Colin Sullivan, a young Irish-American boy who lost his parents and lives with his grandmother. Frank enters the establishment, buys groceries and a comic book for Colin, and also gives him some money. He asks Colin how he's doing in school, and after hearing that everything is going well, he tells him that if he wants to earn some extra money, he can look for him. Shortly after, Colin begins working on car repairs for Frank, where he learns his life philosophy and becomes a sort of mob protege. Frank warns him that those who try to challenge him or tell him what to do usually pay a high price. Shifting to the present, we see that Colin is now an adult and is in the midst of training at the Massachusetts State Police Academy. After the graduation ceremony, he notices Frank's car and approaches it. In the vehicle, Frank gives him a graduation gift, saying that he has earned it. At that moment, Colin officially becomes Frank's mole within the police force. From that moment on, while Colin participates in various raids, lifting clues, and gathering information, Billy Costigan, an American man with Irish roots, is also still in training at the same academy. Billy's mother passes away, leaving him with no close family. After earning his detective accreditation, he gets the approval of the Special Investigations Unit, which is granted to him by Captain Queen and Sergeant Dignam. Although they are not entirely convinced that Billy is suitable for the mission, they offer him a substantial tax-free bonus to accept and go undercover to catch Frank Costello. Queenan explains that he must plead guilty to assault, serve prison time, and then get parole. After 4 months in prison, Billy returns to his Aunt Kathy's house and confesses to his cousin that he has received insurance money after his mother's death and plans to buy and sell drugs for financial purposes, assuring him that he is not a cop. The two drive at night for illegal transactions. In a bar, Billy talks with Mr. French, Costello's right-hand man, and other associates. A man insults Billy for ordering cranberry juice. To get French's attention, Billy exaggerates and breaks a glass over the aggressor's head. His strategy works, and French stops the fight, gives him some stern advice, and buys him a juice. From the police headquarters, Sergeant Dignam leads the Special Investigations team. He informs them that leaks within the department prevent them from identifying with certainty who the moles are, and updates them on the Costello case, who plans to sell stolen military-grade microprocessors to China. Colin and Officer Berrigan try to find clues in South Boston, but they face fearful and distrustful responses, as residents fear the mob. At the same time, Colin leaks internal information to Costello to help him evade the police. In an elevator, he meets Madeline, a police psychiatrist, whose face he recognizes and to whom he reveals that he knows who she is, but he is also studying law. When she gets off, Colin prevents the door from closing and makes it clear that he intends to convince her to have dinner together. Flattered, she gives him her card. In his daily life, Billy confronts some gangsters who are threatening the Pakistani owner of a cafe for a debt. The fight breaks his hand, forcing him to withdraw. Colin and Madeline enjoy an evening at a French restaurant, talking about their jobs and having a good time. Billy, in a South Boston bar, is drinking cranberry juice when Costello enters and sits next to him. This is what Billy has been waiting for, but he pretends not to recognize him. Frank orders him to follow him to a back room and explains that the Italians he beat up are related to the Providence Mafia and will try to kill him again. He asks him if he wants him to stop them. They talk about William Costigan Sr., Billy's father. Meanwhile, Mr. French examines him and confirms that he is clean. Then Frank hits his injured arm against a table, breaking the cast, and interrogates him about whether he's a cop, hitting him with his boot. Billy, despite the pain, maintains his denial, but Frank forces him to agree to stop selling drugs with his cousin and gives him money to treat his injury. Meanwhile, Colin and the police investigate the deaths of 2 Italians in Providence who might have returned to eliminate Billy. Colin calls Madeline and invites her to lunch, but then changes the SIM card in his phone to inform Frank, who tells him where to find a gun that will prove another person's guilt. Frank, at his breakfast, discusses with Billy the possible uses of the weapon, pulling out a severed human hand and placing it on the table, shocking Billy. In the bathroom, Billy breaks his microphone and throws it out the window, while Queenan and Dignam, who were listening to the conversation, are disappointed that they didn't manage to hear everything. Billy walks along the pier, talks to Queenan on the phone, and tells him he won't wear any more microphones, affected by Frank's tactics. Queenan warns him that Costello is selling military microchips to the Chinese, and Dignam suspects that there is a spy mole in the unit. In the office, Captain Ellerby announces an operation to surveil a warehouse where Costello plans to sell the microprocessors, although Colin shows skepticism. He also announces that Frank and Billy are in contact. At the warehouse, the transaction is carried out, but the police cannot get all the evidence due to a blind spot in the surveillance. Billy, increasingly nervous, calls Dignam and informs him that there is a mole among them, as Costello seems to know everything. He asks him to find out who it is. Then, in a cafe, Billy and Madeline talk, and she confesses that she is in a serious relationship. Increasingly paranoid, Billy hits a thief who was resisting sharing his money at his house. He confesses that Frank is an FBI informant, and that's why they are never caught. The news greatly impacts Billy, and after informing Queenan, he is ordered to show up at a warehouse to fill out some papers. They tell him to send the forms in an envelope labeled as Citizen Trust. He completes his, signs it, and leaves. Then he goes to Madeline's house, where she is packing her things. They talk, kiss, and have sex. Frank and Colin cross paths in a movie theater where Colin receives an envelope and leaves. Billy, who has been watching them, follows him through alleys. He manages to lose him by confusing him with others. At the police station, Colin and Dignam have a strong confrontation. Colin accuses him of being a mole, and Dignam demands access to Queenan's files. Colin responds that it's for internal investigations and that he needs the files, which enrages Dignam, who starts hitting him until the captain separates them. Colin states that he believes Queenan was killed by his own mole and asks for access to the closed files. Ellerby orders him to take a leave of absence, but he resigns. Alone in the police station, Colin takes Queenan's phone and dials the last number called. When he hears his phone ringing, he hesitates to answer, and when he does, neither he nor Colin says anything. Then he hangs up, packs his bags, and calls again asking who is speaking. Colin replies that he is Sergeant Sullivan, that he is in charge after Queenan's death, and asks Billy to come to the police station. Billy hangs up again. Colin checks Queenan's files and discovers a note revealing that Costello was an FBI informant, information he was unaware of. As Frank and his team head to pick up drugs, they receive a call from Colin informing them that they are being pursued by 2 cars and must get rid of them. Frank angrily orders them to eliminate the pursuers, and Colin, who is watching from a distance, confirms that Costello is on his way. Frank's men deliver the drugs and get into their cars, but Billy is hiding in the back of the warehouse. When Costello's vehicles leave the place, the police block them at the exit. A shootout breaks out, and Frank's men die, including Costello, who is wounded in the stomach. He takes refuge behind a tractor and calls Colin, who appears with a gun in hand, and interrogates him about whether he is an FBI informant and if they know who he is. Frank assures him that no one has any idea of his identity as he coughs up blood. The police applaud Colin's entry into the police station. Billy waits in his office when Colin enters and introduces himself. He tells him that he will nominate him for the Medal of Merit, the highest distinction. Billy, for his part, only wishes to regain his identity and the promised money. He gives him the password to his undercover file, and Colin goes to make copies. Meanwhile, Billy notices the envelope marked Citizen Trust under some papers on Colin's desk and understands that Colin is the mole. Without wasting time, he deletes the police database where his file is stored and leaves. He arrives at Madeline's office, gives her a white envelope, and asks her to keep it in a safe place with instructions to open it only if something happens to him or if he calls to warn her that she should do so. Later, Colin is sleeping when Madeline places an envelope on his chest, and he wakes up to find an ultrasound. She is expecting a child. He sees her afterward. In her living room, Madeline checks her mail and finds an envelope addressed to Colin sent by Billy. Hearing Colin enter the shower, she opens the envelope and extracts a CD titled "Play Me Now." She listens with headphones and discovers that it contains a recording between Frank and Colin, irrefutable proof that Colin is the mobster's mole. When Colin comes out of the bathroom, Madeline puts the recording on speaker so he can hear it. She leaves the room and slams the door. Colin calls Billy, who informs him that Frank recorded the entire conversation and gave it to his lawyer for safekeeping. Billy explains that he trusted Costello's lawyer more than anyone, and that's how he managed to get the recording. Colin asks what Billy wants, and he replies that he wants to get his identity back and tells him the location of an abandoned building where Queenan died. When Colin arrives at the rooftop, Billy appears with a gun in hand and orders him to put his hands up. He handcuffs him, takes his gun, and arrests him. Colin tries to justify his actions, but Billy doesn't believe him. Then, Colin tells him that no one will believe him because he deleted his file and hid his true identity. Billy punches him in the face several times and leaves him on the ground. Then, when he lifts him up, Officer Brown, who also knows Billy, intervenes with a gun, ordering him to drop his pistol. Billy yells that Colin is a Costello mole and that he has proof. He manages to get him placed in the elevator, but just as the doors open, Billy is shot in the eyes. Berrigan, another officer, tells Colin that he is also a Costello mole. As they unhandcuff Colin, Brown comes out and sees Billy's body on the ground. Berrigan shoots Brown and tells Colin that Costello was turning them into the FBI. He gives him the gun, and Colin shoots Berrigan in the head. At the police station, Colin prepares his story. He claims that Brown killed Billy and that Berrigan was shot by him before he could shoot. He guarantees that he was Costello's mole and that he deserves the Medal of Merit. Billy receives a police ceremonial tribute. Madeline and Colin attend, but remain on opposite sides of the coffin. She cries, visibly affected. After the funeral, Colin tries to talk to her about the baby, but Madeline ignores him and walks past without looking at him. One day, Colin enters his apartment and is surprised to find Dignam there with hospital boots on, showing that he is facing problems. Dignam points his gun at him, shoots him in the head, and leaves in silence.